Oh, sorry. I'm just reading through today's journal entries. I find actually it's fascinating that all of our major spiritual, religious traditions, wisdom traditions, are really saying the same thing. And it's such a shame because we all seem to be stuck in our various tribes and unable to move forward together, to recognise a very simple truth. Try this. Now Rumi, he says, work in the invisible world at least as hard as you do in the visible. In other words, like this morning, I'm sort of dealing with the spiritual side of my life and doing what other people would call the inner work of the spiritual life. The Tao Te Ching says that each separate being in the universe returns to the common source. Returning to the source is serenity. That's the Tao Te Ching. But the Pope says, and so does the Bible, this was what the Pope said just the other day: that very dear word of the Lord returns, which he will repeat so many times. And then in the supper, remain with me, remain in the Lord. He doesn't say study well, learn the clever arguments. He takes this for granted. However, he goes to the most important thing, that which is the most dangerous for life if it's not done. Remain. Continue in my word. And those who continue in Jesus' word have their own Christian identity. And what is it? You are truly my disciples. Christian identity is not an identity card that says you are a Christian. Our identity is in our own, and it will be unique, discipleship. The way in which we follow the words and the teachings of Jesus. We keep coming back to this same mystical truth. I am in you, and you are in me. Jesus, of course, will say that the Father is in him. Our greatest work is to simply maintain that connection. By constantly getting out of our feverish minds, dealing with all of the worries, whether it's this pestilence or just the daily job of earning a living and feeding your children. We need to get out of our feverish minds and back always into our hearts, acknowledging that there we find the whole of God's creation as part of the family. Something that Francis was able to do completely. Now, I'm a Franciscan. I know it to be true because I have sat on a woodland path, cross-legged until my legs ached, for an age, enthralled by the sight of a caterpillar transformed and struggling to escape the chrysalis, and then to spend a moment or two allowing the sunlight to inflate and spread its wings before it can take its first magical flight. My legs were very sore. Or again, there was a time in my very first parish when for a few weeks each year I would have to get to church for morning prayer early, very early enough to help several hundred hungry caterpillars cross the road. They abseiled down in their thousands every day from a tree by the bus stop on the far side of the road to the church grounds and the rose gardens. The bus came every hour, so I had to be there in time to rescue as many as I could by picking them up individually and taking them across the road. Then I had to get into prayer. Now when I came out, being very aware that there will be another bus very soon, I had to move a whole lot more. Sometimes it occurred to me that the church gardener would probably curse me. And I did wonder about the various neighbours who lived around the church, wondering whether they thought I was completely mad. But never mind. I can remember other times, when I was in London, Medway towns, Bristol especially, I've literally sat in the middle of the road talking to foxes who seemed quite pleased to waste time with me, blessing them before I rose to leave. And I can't remember how often they would nod their head in blessing before they left. But I'm a Franciscan. What choice do I have, really? Francis is the particular Christian fool who lives in me, as part of that same family of Christian fools. So, just to pass the time, while I carry on reading my journal, why are you a Christian? And perhaps a Franciscan? You can let us know on the website. Thank you.